welcome back to the Beef for Real podcast. I have actually rebranded this podcast way too many times. I first started with Lila Lou, and then I ended up changing it to the Lila Lou podcast, which was great. I actually ended up gaining more viewers and more people and stuff and consistency. I ended up having amazing guests and all of that. But as most things in my life and most things as a Gemini, I tend to start projects and then put them aside, forget about them, and come back. But one thing I always love to do is create the podcasts. And so I don't know if you guys been seeing, but I actually started a podcast with Frank, my boyfriend, by the way. You guys missed a lot of chapters. But if you guys are following me on the Dirty Carnivore, you have not missed some chapters. You guys are very much aware of what my life has become, where I'm living, what I'm doing, who I'm with, and all of that. But so Frank and I started a podcast when he was in LA. We were in LA together. We created it where he was in one room and then I was in the other room, and we would talk about politics and crypto and all sorts of stuff. And it was just him and I at first. We were kind of just doing like weekly episodes. And then we did that again from a distance for a bit. But after I came back to Toronto, we ended up kind of like stopping it, just kind of died down and things. And then when I came out to Bali, he said that he wanted to revamp the podcast and change it. So we changed the name from which was System Reset at the time, to it being the Bro Bites podcast to Bali Bites podcast, and Bites with a Y. So if you guys are interested in hearing about Bali living, escaping the matrix, and escaping 9-to-5s, and how to live basically the freedom life, with freedom in the mind, the financial, the physical, and all of that stuff. Same kind of no bullshit stance that I have on my page, we have on that podcast, because Frank is very much, like that. Obviously, I would be dating someone like that. But yes, here I am recording this on my phone, on my bed in Bali, while Frank plays pool. And we are revamping this podcast because I actually want to talk more about the health stuff and the sexology stuff and interview people again, because I miss that so much. And I think it's going to be slightly harder because of the time zone difference. There's literally exactly 12 hours from Toronto to here. So basically it's 7 p.m. right now. It's 7 a.m. right there. And they're behind. I'm in the future, guys. I already know what's going to happen. I could tell you how to win lottery tickets. Well, so today we have some very interesting topics. And I also want to mention the fact that lately I have just been feeling unapologetically myself. And I started to realize something. And I've had this talk with a friend before. Shout out to Philip Amador. Where we talked about how we want to have friends and people around us that are going to allow us to be ourselves. And I think that throughout my life, I have had many friends and even family members who have only accepted half of me and not me fully. And so I want to kind of break that stigma and stuff like that. And I also want to be able to be more, what's the word for it? I guess just speak my truth and not be afraid to share that on social media. Especially, I've already been doing this for so many years. You guys know me as the loudmouth carnivore. A lot of carnivores reach out to me from the community and they tell me, wow, you know what? You are making the videos I wish I could make. Because a lot of carnivores out there are very kind, and respectful, and they just talk about the benefits of carnivore and how it's helped them, but they oftentimes ignore the hate comments, or they don't troll, or they don't talk back. And I respond back. I have become a very strong taboo breaker and have very strong controversial opinions, especially this past year, being very extremely political. I would even say and consider myself to be kind of a political commentator now, which I also never thought would happen, by the way. But apparently, even astrologically speaking, Geminis make great politicians. Now, I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me when it comes to this stuff, but um, John F. Kennedy was a Gemini. Correct me if I'm wrong. We'll fact check on this. I have my laptop right here, so I can like search and talk to you as we discuss in this podcast. And a lot of people's favorite person in the entire world, Donald Trump, is also a Gemini. Now, will I say that Geminis are smart, witty, intelligent, all that stuff? Definitely. But we also know how to talk our way into anything and talk our way out of anything. And that's why I think that Geminis are great at like politics or communication, like public speaking and all of that stuff. Like, we are the planet of communication, Mercury. And I know not all of you guys are going to be listening to this podcast and being like, oh my God, like, what does it matter? We talk about astrology. I'm always going to talk about astrology a little bit on this podcast. That's just how I am. We are here to talk about so many different things today. I want to kind of refresh people as to why I went carnivore and why to go carnivore, or why it's the optimum diet. I want to talk a little bit about how I got to Bali. And this podcast that we're making right now is going to be hopefully a little shorter. I want to try to make it 30 minutes long, because I'm going to be doing this before I have guests on the podcast. But today it's just a special episode between you and I, while I sit on my bed, and you can just, either join me with a cup of coffee in the morning or some chamomile tea as you like unwind. And then you guys are going to be able to watch this and listen to this either on your ear, close to your ear, or you guys are going to be, seated with me on YouTube. So, continuing on why I came to Bali and the current event and hot topics that made me want to be even louder than I already am, guests coming on the podcast and what is in store, as well as things that I'm working on online. And we have already talked about Bali Bites and all of that stuff. And then just kind of like an outro. So let's get into it. Who am I? If you guys are listening, I always find that question to be kind of like loaded, because like I never know how to answer who am I. I'm an artist. I'm a free thinker. I'm a critical thinker. I'm a freedom advocate. I'm a meat fluencer. That means that I'm on a carnivore diet, but I advocate for meat and high fat, high protein diets. I have arthritis and have suffered with it my whole life. And long story short, after the medical system failed me many, many times, trying different diets, all the way from Western to veganism to keto, carnivore has been the only thing that's helped me. I've actually also written a book about that. So if you guys want to watch, read my book, you guys could go and check that out. You guys will eventually be able to get an audiobook from me, but I have been slacking on that. I've already created the ebook, the hardcover, everything else. So that's out there so that you guys can see and understand more of the carnivore diet. I'm actually also working on a second book, and currently the title is My Boyfriend's Dad is a Vegan. And I thought that was a very clever, funny title. But basically what I'm doing in this book is I'm breaking down the carnivore diet, but I'm also breaking down all the myths from the carnivore community and showing the facts, showing the questions. So I've been asking a lot of vegans, a lot of a lot of plant-based people and more about their opinions when it comes to the carnivore diet, or the concerns they have with minerals and supplements and all of that stuff. And I want to take every question and answer it. So this is also going to be kind of like, hopefully, a kind of a carnivore Bible where people are able to see it as like the debunker book kind of thing, which my book was kind of like a memoir, manifesto, autobiography / cookbook. But then this one is also going to be like, you know, like a myth buster. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. Also, I'm using this microphone, but I don't even know if it's recording on the mic, to be honest with you. But I was too lazy to use my big mic. So today we're going to be like getting nice and cozy. Okay, so now you guys know the reason why I went carnivore. And I also kind of want to talk about something that I've noticed. So I've been carnivore now for 2 years and 10 months. The same amount of time that my dog has been alive for. My baby dog. So one thing that I find is that I've been seeing lots of people quit the carnivore diet and not be able to go through with carnivore, not be able to go through with keto and stuff like that. And one thing I've noticed, again, this is going to be loud, you know, because a lot of people say they tried keto or they tried carnivore, and that's fucking bullshit. No, you didn't. You tried it for a few days to a week, and then you slipped off, and then it didn't work, and you said that it didn't work for you. I find that when I first went carnivore, first of all, people go straight to lion diet. Lion diet, if you guys don't know, I'm gonna try to like put something on the screen of it, you know. The lion diet is just beef, salt water, lamb, salt, and water. There's no variation in textures, in flavors and stuff. And people go through having this wide variety of food and going straight to that. And then they end up quickly losing interest in being on this diet because they can't handle it anymore. It gets really boring really quick. As for the carnivore diet has so many textures and flavors, and you can have dairy and you can have cheese, and you can even have honey if you'd like. You can have meat. The honey part is debatable, by the way. You can have seafood. You can have all and every animal product. Now the thing is, okay, now hear me out. This is also another part that people, even within the carnivore and keto community, miss out. They forget that our energy fuel becomes fat. When we have no more carbs in our diet, our body needs to have some sort of energy. So your body is either running on carbs that become sugar, and that is going to be your main energy source, or it's going to be the fat that gives you the fuel. Okay? Now, I know a lot of people are like against saturated fat, and that could be a whole discussion in itself. We can talk about that another day and talk about the reasons why it's actually not harmful for you. And by the way, there are no studies that prove that carnivore or meat gives you any cardiovascular disease, any clogged arteries and all that stuff. Let's go quickly into that. Clogged arteries are from being sedentary, from drinking alcohol, from smoking cigarettes, from eating processed foods, not because of meat. Don't even go there. And you can Google this. The funny thing is the information is there and people choose not to Google it. People choose not to read the articles, and they're just stuck in their old ways of thinking. And so now you can see why some people like me and why some people hate me. Back into the fat thing. A lot of keto and carnivore people, and a lot of people that go and try the carnivore diet, undereat when it comes to fats. And then they wonder why it's not working. Fat is your energy. If your cortisol is up high, and most likely it is because we live in a stressed out society, you need more fat. You need more fat into your diet. I don't care if you're having 3 steaks a day. If you are not implementing tallow, butter, lard, and all of that other stuff, like, you are not getting the nutrients that you need, and you are not getting the energy you need, and your hormones are going to be messed up. You're gonna have muscle cramping, you're gonna have random fatigues and stuff, and your stress might be higher as well. I say that fat is the number one thing on the carnivore diet. Actually, people put it as the meat and the protein. In reality, without your fat, you're not doing really well. We have to come up with some sort of like rhyme with like fat, like something. I don't know. I will think of something clever eventually. Okay, so now we're gonna come out of the carnivore subject, and we're going to be coming into why Bali. So my boyfriend Frank has been dying to come to Bali for I don't know how many years. He's seen it before. We talked about it on our podcast and all that stuff. Now, Bali, honestly, Asia in general, I never thought I'd ever end up in Asia. I've been a traveler, and Asia has never been kind of like on my bucket list. I've always wanted to go to Korea, South Korea, or like Japan or something like that. Heard great things about Thailand, but it's never been like number one on my bucket list. I love more like European countries, or I've been to places in the UK. I've been to some places in Central America and in South America and all of that stuff. So I have been quite well traveled, I believe, and I've done a lot of solo travel. We can talk about that in another episode. But I had never been to Asia and haven't had such a major time difference. Bali has been quite interesting because I came here because of Frank, because he wanted me out here and he wanted to get me a birthday gift and for me to see how wonderful it is. And he was really lonely, as much as he doesn't like to admit it. It was fun without me at first, and then things started to get boring without me. And I know that he's gonna be watching this and he's gonna be like, but it's true. It's true. That's just what it is. So Bali is very different from obviously Western culture and all that stuff. But the thing with Bali is that there's a big spiritual bubble on this island. There's something so strong spiritually that I don't know how to describe it to you. And there's so many myths and stuff and superstitions on this island, and they believe that too. Like, either your relationship is going to make or break in Bali because it's going to test your relationship. It also tests you to see if you're supposed to be in Bali and if you're not. And that one I'm still trying to see if it is for me or not. As much as I love it here, to be honest, it's great and all, I have been feeling very lonely. I miss my dog, and I don't quite have my full routine and lifestyle here, even though I've been here for 3 months and kind of know now where like everything is and like what the restaurants are and stuff. And even it's funny because a lot of people are starting to recognize me and Frank, or know of me and Frank, because of the Bali Bites podcast. It's become kind of like a, like something people know. And that's kind of what we wanted. We wanted to kind of have like conversations going and stuff with people, and be able to talk about the beautiful parts of Bali, the rough parts about Bali, and everything in regards to the whole freedom mindset. So, I have been slowly kind of finding my own community of people here and trying to make more friends with women, as I don't really have many girlfriends. Most of my friends are guys, and it's always just been that way too. I also think I just kind of lean that way more when it comes to that. I feel like maybe sometimes girls don't have the types of subjects and things that I'm interested in. Maybe that's just me stereotyping and not having the best experiences when it comes to that. I have very few girlfriends and a lot of guy friends. That's just how it's been. But yeah, the cultures and the hub and the expat scene and everything. Another thing is funny that Frank is like, everyone says hi here, everyone says good morning here, and all of that stuff. And I'm like, That's the most of the world. I don't know if you traveled a lot. Well, he has traveled a lot, so I don't know why he's saying that from here. But it reminds me a lot of Brazil because everybody is so warm and welcoming and will make you feel warm and welcomed. And another thing I've noticed too is that, I'm not going to say all because it's not great to say all, but a lot of the people that come here are kind of like full of themselves. Not all. I've met some really cool people, but they come out here and then suddenly they're like rich here, So it's like they have this kind of like attitude to them or whatever. And there's so many like influencers and all of this stuff. Frank's left LA and he hates LA, and I tell him it's kind of like LA 2.0 in a way with the tourists specifically. And I find that sometimes they don't have as much care and respect for the land as much as the locals do. And that's kind of like one thing I see, but I see that worldwide though, so I can't really judge in regards to here. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that, because as I said, we've met some cool people, we've made some great friends and great connections and all of that stuff. But yeah, so I'm trying to figure out if Bali is wanting to keep me on the island or spit me out. And that's like a funny thing. I've seen like TikToks about this or heard different stuff about this. I recently had Bali belly, which is kind of like traveler's food poisoning, but it wasn't fucking traveler food poisoning. It was insane of what I had. I am 4'9" and I am 75 pounds. So I ended up waking up at 3 in the morning and ended up violently having diarrhea, excuse my language, and throwing up at the exact same time. Like I reached for a bucket and it was coming out of both ends for like the like for hours, basically, on and off. And then in the morning I felt very weak and I lost so many fluids, and I started to get very my immune system was triggered so much, and what ends up happening is when I get sick, my arthritis acts up. So my whole body was aching, my joints were hurting. I started getting extremely nauseous, couldn't eat or drink anything without it immediately coming back up. And it was like that from like 3 in the morning till like 3 p.m. where I was like completely depleted, and I was so dehydrated, so fucking dehydrated, and I couldn't chug water, because if I would chug, then I would just throw everything back up. So I had to take like small sips every 5 minutes, and I was just like wanting something, wanting relief. It was just awful, and I honestly felt like I was going to die. Like, I'm no joke to you, no joke. I have actually recorded a small short reel that I haven't posted yet of like all the stuff that's helped me get rid of Bali belly. But it got so bad that I really felt like this was going to be like the end of my life, because I was just like so weak, so depleted. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like what happened to me? And I ended up going to the clinic, having to get like saline, like electrolytes, IV fluids back into me, as well as injected anti-nausea medicine, which ended up helping me when I came back. I think I threw up still like 2-3 times, very little, but it kind of slowly started subsiding. Usually people only have Bali belly for like a day, and then they're like, oh, I'm fine. The next day I'm like a little weak, but I'm doing good. For me, it fucking lasted like 12 days, 13 days, even by the 14th day. Like I have, and also thank God for ChatGPT, because I'm no joke, ChatGPT helped me literally word for word what to do, what type of medications to take, what type of things to avoid, what foods to eat. Frank made me chicken soup with bone marrow and collagen and all this stuff. And now let me tell you, the whole, like everybody kept telling me, be careful with the street food, be careful with the local food, be careful with the meat here and all of that stuff. In reality, what ended up giving me Bali belly was fucking pre-cut, store-bought pineapple. And you know what's funny? Most E. coli and salmonella cases, which this is what it was one of the other, are usually in regards to fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. They do say, like, if you ask ChatGPT, which I've already have, they show like, oh yes, like undercooked chicken and all of this stuff or whatever. But to be honest with you, I have so many friends that eat raw chicken and haven't had any issues. I wouldn't trust certain foods in Asia because of the bacteria and stuff like that. But even then, out of all things I've been eating, and I have been eating way more animal based here than carnivore, to be honest. And I've had way more treats and stuff like that. And I've noticed a huge difference, like no joke with you. Not to say that I'm not like crucifying myself for kind of like coming off of it a little bit and coming back on. But I do feel an immense difference from eating animal based versus strict carnivore. And I do love being strict carnivore for the reason of like my mental health, depression, anxiety, body pains, and all of that stuff. I've had so many instances of being like sick or having my cortisol be high. Like I could feel these things like internally just by being here or like experimenting with different foods. And so, yeah, I mean, I ended up being really bad for days. And eventually, I think like one of the things that helped me too was like we took Pocari Sweat, which is not a healthy electrolyte drink, but needed when you're like, really bad. I had no other option. I was going to do anything at that point. Put it in ice cube trays, freeze it, and then just suck on the ice cube. That like gave me so much relief. Even like eating frozen bananas gave me so much relief. And it's the only thing that I could digest. And then whenever I would eat soup, I would feel like nourished, but I would get so nauseous after eating. My stomach enzymes, my gut microbiome, everything had to rebuild again, which fucking sucks. And I have this like weird rash. You can't really see it, to be honest, but you kind of could see it a little bit. This weird rash on my thumb that appeared, and apparently is due to also Bali belly and like being sensitive to like photosynthesis, like, and from the sun, the UV rays from being inside and being sedentary, and it's just a whole lot. But like I said, I'm still trying to figure out if Bali is trying to keep me or spit me out back into the world. So, and I've been like sick on and off and all this stuff. Obviously jet lag, you're gonna get that. Like I thought I was going to be fine with the jet lag. Even when I was traveling, I was like, I think I beat it, I was fine or whatever. And then I had like jet lag for like 2 weeks and a half. Like it was like, but yeah, I mean, besides that, I love the nature, I love the culture, I love being able to travel, and I love to be able to live my life being 26 years old and being able to have these experiences that other people otherwise wouldn't have. So that's a little bit about Bali. Well, we're going to obviously talk more about like my experiences and stuff, but that's that. And now, before we kind of like wrap up, I want to kind of go into these subjects. We're not going to go into it so deeply, but RIP Charlie Kirk. I ended up hearing this, I think, when I had Bali belly, or like a day before, around then. And we first heard that he was shot, and it was like 4 a.m. here. He's like, oh my god, Charlie Kirk got shot, we don't know if he's gonna make it, he could die. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's horrible. And then we ended up hearing that he died, and like I got the worst feeling. Like I got a sinking feeling and like this wave of depression. I was so sad. I had never been that sad from a political figure, never been that sad about a celebrity dying. I think as a kid, I remember the sadness of me like crying when I watched Corey Monteith like pass away due to overdose, and they made the Glee tribute episode. Like that's as much as I probably cried for like a celebrity or a stranger or someone that I didn't know. But with Charlie Kirk, he was my first like political idol, like icon, kind of, like he inspired me to speak out more. I loved watching his debates. I saw how much he like swept the nation when it came to like actually having debates and conversations with people in all sorts of stuff. And literally, I feel like this is like a huge thing for America, because it wasn't that he just died from a car accident or that he just died with some sort of like just random cause. He was assassinated. And that's fucking tragic. And the reason for the assassination being because of his difference of opinions. Now, obviously, I've been watching lots of Candace Owens, and I've been seeing so many different things, and I've been seeing so many conspiracies, and I'm not gonna say exactly who I think did it, but I think we all know who kind of did it, and who he was speaking out on, and who he was questioning at the end of his life. That's all I'm just gonna say. But Charlie Kirk, honestly, I feel like has shifted America in the sense that after he died, yes, so there's lots of people, there's lots of fucking hateful people that have really revealed their true colors, including many friends and people that I know that I had unfollowed because of them celebrating his death or saying that he deserved it in some way, or trying to spin something that it isn't. A lot of these people are just fucking reading headlines or watching 30-second videos and believing they know the full context when they don't. But I've also had great conversations with people where I have changed their mind in like sharing a couple of paragraphs, because I don't call people names. I'm not disrespectful when I have my opinions or when I debate, but I will stand my ground on the facts and on the things that are actually happening. So I have luckily been able to change the minds of some people that were like kind of unaware about Charlie, or kind of like skeptical about him. Lots of liberals and Democrats and stuff, just saying. But yeah, I think that honestly, this shifted something huge. Not only do I think it's going to be a big moment in history, we're always going to remember this. This is going to be kind of like John F. Kennedy level. Like, you know, it's going to be like Charlie Kirk. Like, this is what happened to him back in 2025. And, you know, spiritually, I believe that there's always a purpose and things as to why things happen. And so there is the circle, and I think that even if Charlie was alive today, that he would still be ready for this, and he would believe that it was a higher power and something to do with God and Jesus. And it's really beautiful. And I also have been seeing so many people saying, I'm gonna go back to church. I started reading the Bible again. I started focusing on family and my loved ones, and that's honestly such a beautiful thing. A beautiful thing in a time where we are the most atheist generation of all fucking times. And I think that that has a big thing to do with why we are the way we are, because without religion, without structure, without spirituality, there is no accountability, there is no morals, there is no values, there is no karma for what ends up happening. And that is where we were headed. And I think where a lot of us are still headed, unfortunately. But I also think there has been such a major shift where now so many people are going back to God, are going back to energy and spirituality and traditional roles and connecting with a divine feminine, divine masculine. And it's just so beautiful, and it moves me so much when I see these things, like so much so that it makes me want to cry. Like it's just beautiful. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about on that subject, because I think that while it's awful that all this is happening, he came here and served a purpose that was so much bigger than what we know and understand. And now we're gonna go into other things about just briefly. I don't want to get too much into this. I will eventually, you guys are going to be able to see so many videos on my Carnivore page on this subject, because I've been speaking about it. But it is the whole Tylenol causes autism / vaccines as well. So let's just kind of rearrange for this. Trump has finally made an announcement about warning women against Tylenol and the correlations of autism, as well as talking about spacing out vaccines and stuff like that. Now, I have a couple of things and theories and all of this stuff, and also facts. Number one, whatever Trump says, people are immediately against. I have been seeing some dangerous videos out there of liberal or democratic women literally like overdosing on fucking Tylenol because they don't like that Trump said it. But in reality, you gotta be like a certain level of idiot to take that information and be like, I'm gonna go against Trump and affect my potential baby. Like, how ridiculous is that? You're putting yourself in danger, you're putting your child in danger. And for people saying this isn't true and all this stuff, go on YouTube and go on TikTok. There are some like literal like wacko people actually doing this. It's no joke. And people have spoken out about this and all. And okay, Trump said it, but in reality, it wasn't Trump too. It was RFK Jr. And it wasn't just RFK Jr. I could tell you the exact names of people if we look it up. Let's do that right now. Okay. Okay, so let's ask this question together. Who warned RFK Jr. about the Tylenol and autism correlations? So as we know, RFK Jr. is of the health department within the Trump cabinet and administration. So a lot of people are not realizing this, and I feel like everything that Trump says, it's literal like Trump derangement syndrome. I've had conversations about all of these political stuff. It's kind of loading while we're talking. A lot of people are telling me or calling me names in regards to the Charlie Kirk thing, calling me white supremacist, fascist, all sorts of stuff, which ironically, they're the ones being the fascist. But even when it comes to the health field and all of this stuff, if you even agree with 2% of what Trump says, you're suddenly labeled as a Trumper or a Trumpist or whatever. And like, I think that's fucking insane. Especially when it comes to like political stuff like that. I started learning so much more about politics and kind of doing deep dive with politics in America and Canada and all this stuff. I'm way more informed in American politics than anything else, so just letting you guys know. But obviously I know a little bit about Brazilian politics because I'm Brazilian. Don't know so much about a Mexican one, even though I am Mexican. And I know what's going on in Canada, and I have been living through it. So nowadays, it's like people oftentimes just immediately label you. They don't ask you questions. They're not curious about you. They're not curious about what you say. They don't even listen before mislabeling you and calling you these names. I agree with one or two things that Trump says, and suddenly I'm like this Trump worshiper. I don't believe in most political figures and political, presidents and things. I don't even follow I don't even follow my mom and dad's advice of what they think that I should do. You really think I'm going to let the government dictate what I'm going to do? Really? Just really think about that. Who do you think I am? Who do you think I am? So I just find it funny and all of that. If I post anything in regards to Trump or what Trump said, suddenly I'm getting all of this like backlash or stuff, or people telling me that like I'm supporting or whatever. It's just it is what it is, you know. I'm also kind of proud in a way that people think I'm American. My boyfriend's American, and I just find it funny. I think it's because I've been so politically loud through the American side and not as much as the Canadian. And because of all of the health stuff and the correlation and the carnivore community, and majority are from the US that I guess that people have thought that I was, but then they're like, oh, that makes sense why you're so kind and all that. Okay, so this is what it says here. Now we're going to go back to this. I know I took that break. It says, I found something pretty concrete. Kenvue's interim CEO Kirk Perry reportedly lobbied RFK Jr. to not cite Tylenol as a possible cause of autism in a health report. Also, media sources say that Trump's Tylenol autism claims reference work by Andrea Baccarelli, a Harvard professor, though his testimony in a lawsuit was later tossed out by a judge for being skewed. So in short, the CEO of the company behind Tylenol tried to warn RFK Jr. to not publicly link Tylenol to autism, and some of the scientific backings for such claim has been challenged in court. Now, I'll tell you something. Obviously, the CEO of Tylenol is going to tell you not to talk bad about their company, okay? We already know that RFK Jr. has been going against a lot of the stuff and the mainstream narratives and questioning the system in a lot of different fucking ways, okay? So, one thing that I have made videos about, and you guys can watch them on my page, is that I said, like, who owns Tylenol? And these are the questions we should be asking, by the way. And it says Kenvue owns Tylenol, but Kenvue is also kind of like a, almost like a knockoff version of Johnson & Johnson. But the funny part is, who owns Kenvue is also Johnson & Johnson. They're the largest of the shareholders. And who owns Johnson & Johnson? And then so it has Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock. And if you guys do deeper research as to who these larger corporations are, they are the largest shareholders of companies in the world. Now, a lot of these companies, and I'm not just saying these shareholders itself, but they're investing in these companies because most people are buying things from these companies. So they're becoming richer and they're profiting off of you being sick. And that's one thing that I talked about a lot when it comes to that. These are the questions we should be asking, sure. But also, I have had so many people debate me and talk about the whole Tylenol and autism correlation, saying, "Oh, we should be pointing to vaccines and stuff." Okay, sure, we should be. But that's already been proven. This whole thing of acetaminophen has been it's still new. 2025 science papers, there's 2021 research about this, and a lot of them do not say that there's an exact correlation, sure, but that's what the thing is people want exact correlations. When has there ever been exact anything in fucking science? There's been so many things that have been proven and debunked and relearned and everything. This is coming out right now, and it's the ingredients in it that are potentially harmful. There has been so many different things about them, and I can read it to you. I'll ask the question so that you guys could get kind of like a long story short. Long story short, I want you to tell me what the claims were in the research papers in regards to autism and Tylenol. Yes, there hasn't been an exact correlation, as you mentioned, but there has been some things warning people and some kind of, I guess, some sort of correlations with it, let's say. I don't remember the exact word, but we're going to hear what they have to say. And then after all of this, we're going to be wrapping it up. Let's get into it. So, the reason why I'm sharing this and all of this is that people are pointing fingers at the wrong people. Like they're pointing it to Trump and things that he's saying and whatever, okay? And then they're also saying that, oh, I watched the video of him saying that you gotta tough it out. And nobody is saying that you should like stick it out with a fever when you're pregnant, but Tylenol isn't the only thing that helps you with fevers. And what do you think people were doing back in the days? There are so many alternative herbs and different types of medications and things that you can take that reduce fever. That's not Tylenol. And another thing is, a lot of people have been debating about it being the specific brand. They're like, why are you saying Tylenol? Like, why are people going off after the brand itself? How many food or products have had knockoff versions of something, or have had something that was like the unhealthy version of something? I could buy Canadian maple syrup, or I could buy Aunt Jemima syrup. And the Canadian maple syrup is healthier for me. It's a brand that's going to come out of trees. As for Aunt Jemima, is going to be made with high fructose corn syrup. They're essentially the same thing. They're both syrups, but one is good and one is bad. And so that's kind of where I was kind of going with that. I thought of it. Now we're going to listen to what the studies say. There's a lot, but we're going to take this and then we're going to wrap it up. What some studies claim and observe: the umbilical cord biomarker study, higher levels of acetaminophen metabolizes in the cord blood were linked to higher odds of later ASD, ADHD with dose response pattern. Observation, proof of cause. Pooled European birth cohorts, 73,000 pairs. Moms reporting prenatal acetaminophen use had slightly higher ODDs of autistic traits in children, on the order of 10 to 20% increases in odds. Multiple systematic reviews, meta-analysis across many observational studies. There's a consistent association signal, small effect sizes between more frequent prenatal use and higher risk of ASD and ADHD. Several reviews conclude evidence of association, use caution. What other strong studies find is that very large Swedish registry with siblings comparison, 2.5 million kids. In standard analysis, you see small increases. But when comparing siblings control for shared gene/family factors, the associations disappear. For ASD and ADHD, no evidence of causal effect in those models. How researchers explain the mixed results were confounding by indication. Reason for taking acetaminophen: fever, infection, pain, can influence fetal development, measurements and use. Many studies use self-report, timing, dose, and those are imperfect. Different designs / different answers equal different answers. Biomarker studies reduce recall bias. Sibling designs reduce genetic / family confounding. Each has trade-offs. Mechanism proposed, theoretic, not proven. Oxidative stress, mitochondrial effects, endocrine signaling changes in prostaglandin pathways, interference during brain development. These hypotheses are not settled facts. Although we do know that, like I said, cortisol is the enemy. So I strongly believe this. It's saying that these are all hypotheses when it comes to this specific section and not settled facts. But we all know what it does when our mitochondrial system is affected. We all know what happens when our cortisol gets affected. People with autoimmune issues, things start to tense up, flare up. Inflammation causes in the body, and these things then cause other issues. So yes, it might not be fully that, but there are some correlations here, What caution statements generally recommend? No paper proves causation, but several conclude it's prudent in pregnancy to limit dose. Okay. And avoid unnecessary use. Obviously, I'm not going to read the rest. There's not much left. But the funny thing about the reducing the use and all of that stuff, I have heard some people say like, oh, my doctor didn't recommend me that. While I've seen so many other women that say, well, my doctor recommended me take Tylenol every day or as much as I wanted. throughout my pregnancy. And these things are not good. I think that goes without saying. I've had so many doctors tell me, oh, this medication is not working, take this one and this one. Oh, that's not working, take this one, and this one. And suddenly I'm taking 30 pills and none of them are working. But they're causing me to have other types of side effects and other types of problems and other types of inflammation. Never have I ever went to a doctor that has given me something that's actually worked and stayed working, even when I stopped taking it. It's a Band-Aid and doesn't fix the root of the problem. And that's why I'm such a strong advocate and loud mouth when it comes to politics and science and food and sexology and all of that stuff, because I believe that we are being lied to, and there's so many things that are not being said, and people are like, why does it matter, or whatever. Why does it matter? Because you are dictating like really severe outcomes for your future children and for mothers, and these things are going to affect their lives and your lives for the rest of your life. So it should be something that we should be looking at in general. So yeah, basically that's kind of what I had when it comes to BlackRock, Vanguard State, and State Street, and Charlie Kirk, and Tylenol, and autism, and all sorts of stuff in politics. And I will have so much more discussions definitely coming soon that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. I wanted to talk about the guests that are coming up. I have made a podcast with Anthony Chafee's girlfriend, and I have also made a podcast with Steak and Butter Gal, and I have not posted it. I recorded them last year, but I took a break from my podcast, and I think that that's kind of like when it died down. So I wanted to save these episodes for when I start over again. So you guys are going to be seeing this episode and seeing those episodes, and then eventually I'm going to be creating more and having partly me speaking in these sections, and then partly the guest speaking in the sections, because I think that that's going to be a good mix-up, so you guys could hear way more about my unfiltered opinions in longer form, as well as hear me talk or debate other people on my podcast and have some very interesting insights when it comes to health, fitness, politics, controversial subjects, and sexology and relationship stuff. So yes. And then obviously I'm working on so many new things, so definitely follow me. Like I said, new books, and I want to create programs and different stuff. We're going to be talking a lot about attachment types and psychology, and I want to really amplify the dating aspect too, because I really love these subjects, and they're subjects that inspire me to have so many things to talk about. And when I get inspired, I like what I do and I want to share it with you guys. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So there you have it. Another episode of Beef for Real, the reboot with the new name. And I thank you guys so much for listening in, tuning in. You guys can share your thoughts and opinions and all sorts of stuff like that. And I look forward to hearing soon from you again. Ciao, ciao.